Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari
Thank you, Aviral Prabhu. Jayam Viṣṇu Pad Paramhamsa Parivikachari Ashtrashat Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Śrīla Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Viṣṇu Pad Paramhamsa Parivikachari Ashtrashat Srimad His Divine Grace Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivas Hari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Gauri Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Goti Vaishnav Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gaura Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Urdi Rayat Nasta Praishu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtaki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, this morning we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 7, Texts 30 and 31. So I'll read text 30 first because there's no purport to it. So the demigods there addressing Lord Shiva, O Lord, your shadow is seen in irreligion, which brings about varieties of irreligious creations. The three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, are your three eyes. All the Vedic scriptures, which are full of verses, are emanations from you because the compilers wrote the various scriptures after receiving your glance. Text 31. Na te giritrakila Lokapala, Virincha, Vaikunta, Surindra Gayam, Jyoti, Param, Yatra, Rajas, Tamash, Cha, Sattvam, Na, Yad, Brahma, Nirasta Bedam, Nate Giritra Kila Lokapala, Virincha Vaikunta Surindra Gayam, Jyoti Param Yatra Rajastamascha, Sattvam Nayad Brahmani Rasta Bedam, Nati Giritra Kila Lokapala, Virincha Vaikunta Surindra Gamyam, Jyoti Param Yatra Rajastamascha, Sattvam Nayad Brahmani Rasta Bedam, Nate Giritra Kila Lokapala, Virincha Vaikunta Surindra Gamyam, Jyoti Param Yatra Rajastamascha, Sattvam Nayad Brahmani Rasta Dvedam,
Brahma
Anyone online would like to chant? Okay. Na, not, te, of your lordship, Giritra, O king of the mountains, Akila Lokapala, all the directions of departments of material activities. Virincha, Lord Brahmā, Vaikunta, Lord Viṣṇu, Sura Indra, the king of heaven, Gamyam, they can understand, Jyotihi, effulgence, Param, transcendental, Yatra, wherein, Rajaha, the mode of passion, Tamacha, and the mode of ignorance, Sattvam, the mode of goodness, Na, not, Yat Brahma, which is impersonal Brahman, Nirastabedam, without distinction between demigods and human beings. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O Lord Girisha, since the impersonal Brahman effulgence is transcendental to the material modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance, the various directors of this material world certainly cannot appreciate it or even know where it is. It is not understandable even to Lord Brahmā, Lord Viṣṇu, or the King of Heaven, Mahindra. Purport. The Brahmajyoti is actually the effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Brahma Samhita 540. Yasya Prabha Vato Jagad Ananta Koti Koteshu. Go ahead.
Yasya Prabha Bhavato Jagadanda Koti Koti Svishesha Vasudhari Vibhuti Bhinnam Tad Brahma Nishkalam Anandam Ashesha Bhutam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Translation. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is endowed with great power. The glowing effulgence of his transcendental form is the impersonal Brahman, which is absolute, complete, and unlimited, and which displays the varieties of countless planets with their different opulences in millions and millions of universes. Although the impersonal feature of the Absolute is an expansion of the rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he does not need to take care of the impersonalists who enter the Brahmajyoti. Krishna says in Bhagavad-gītā, mayā tatam idaṁ sarvam jagad avyakta murtena. In my impersonal feature, I pervade this entire universe. Thus, the avyakta murti, the impersonal feature, is certainly an expansion of Krishna's energy. Mayavadis who prefer to merge into this Brahman effulgence worship Lord Śiva. The mantras referred to in text 29 are called Mukhani Pancho Panishadas Tavesha. Mayavadis take these mantras seriously in worshipping Lord Śiva. These mantras are as follows.
1. Tat Purushaya Vidmahe Shantyai. 2. Mahadevaya Dhimahi Vidyayai. 3. Tanno Rudrak Pratishtayai. 4. Prachodayat Dhrityai. 5. Agorebhyastama. 6. Atagorebhyo Moha. 7. Agorebhyo Raksha. 8. Agoratarebhyo Nidra. 9. Sarvebhyak Sarvavyadhyai. 10. Sarva Sarvebhyo Mrityave. 11. Namastestu Kshoda. 12. Rudra Rupebhyas Trishna. 13. Vamadevaya Raja. 14. Jeshtaya Swaha. 15. Shrestaya Ratyai. 16. Rudraya Kalyanyai. 17. Kalaya Kama. 18. Kalavikaranaya Sandinyai. 19. Balavikanaya Kriya. 20. Balaya Vridhyai. 21. Balachaya. 22. Pramatanaya Datrai. 23. Sarvabhuta Damanaya Brahmanyai. 24. Manak Shoshinyai. 25. Unmanaya dvara. 26. Sadyojatam prapadjami siddhai. 27. Sadjojataya vai namah riddhai. 28. Bhave dityai. 29. Abhave lakshmyai. 30. Nati bhave medha. 31. Bhajasvamam kanchai. 32. Bhava swadha. 33. Udbhavaya prabha. 34. Ishana sarva vidyanam shashinyai. 35. Ishwarak sarva bhutanam abhayada. 36. Brahmadipatir Brahmanodipatir Brahman Bhameshtada. 37. Shivo me astu marichai. 38. Sadashiva, and then I can't read the last word. What does it say? What is it? 29. Okay. Now, just to note, many of these, practically all of them, have 3 dots after them, which mean these are just the starts of the mantras. There's more to them, but I think we can investigate later at a different.
Thank you, Dravida Prabhu. The impersonalist Brahman is unknown even to the other directors of the material creation, including Lord Brahmā, Lord Indra, and Lord Viṣṇu. This does not mean, however, that Lord Viṣṇu is not omniscient. Lord Viṣṇu is omniscient, but he does not need to understand what is going on in his all-pervading expansion. Therefore, in Bhagavad-gītā, the Lord says that although everything is an expansion of him, mayā tatam idaṁ sarvam, he does not need to take care of everything. Na cāhaṁ teṣv avasthitaḥ. Since there are various directors like Lord Brahmā, Lord Śiva and Indra. Oma jnana timirandasya jnananjana shlakaya chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave namaha Shri Chaitanya manobishtam stapitam yena bhutale Swayam rupa kadam mayam dadati swapadantikam vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitam Sha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusita Devi Pranamami Hare Pre Vansha Kalpatri Vishcha Kripa Sandibhi Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here we have a very exalted and mysterious personality, Lord Śiva. Many people who get into Eastern philosophy or Eastern culture will come across this unique personality. Sometimes on book distribution, on the cover of The Science of Self-Realization, there's a picture of Lord Viṣṇu as the Paramatma. And many people ask, is this Lord Śiva? And then I just smile and I say, no, this is actually Lord Viṣṇu. And this is known as the Super Soul, the Paramatma, residing in everyone's heart. And I remember before coming to Krishna consciousness, I was really exploring the Eastern philosophy, And when I came across Lord Ganesh and Lord Śiva, I was very intrigued, Who is this personality with the crescent moon on his head? Water flowing out of his matted hair, 3 eyes holding a trident in meditation. And why does he have a snake wrapped around his neck? Just seeing this personality, I was very captivated. So that was part of my spiritual journey. And there was this one devotee when we were in Las Vegas. His name was Rasika Govinda Prabhu. Him and his friend, they joined us for Guru Puja and class. Maharaj gave a Bhagavatam class. And we were having breakfast together, and he told us that he was actually a worshipper of Lord Śiva for 9 years in India, before he found out about Hare Krishna. No, he's from the Berkeley Temple. African body. You know him? Yeah. Rasika Govinda. Yeah. And I told him, when you go back to the Berkeley Temple, tell my old friend Bhakti Ryan, Bhakti Glenn says hi. And tell him that I miss sweeping and mopping the temple room with you on Sundays. And I miss washing pots with you. These were my early, services when I first started coming. Bhakti Ryan, he was very energetic. He had a lot of wonderful ideas. And as I was washing pots with them, he just kept expressing how he felt. He was just venting. And I was just there washing pots, smiling, just listening to him. And then all of his frustration just kind of went away. Sometimes people just need to be heard, And we would clean the temple room very nicely, And I remember one time he chastised me. He said, Prabhu, when you use the squeegee, make sure you don't splash it on people's dhoti. He said, this is jute. He was looking at his dhoti and I said, I'm very sorry, So, and we used to go out on book distribution, Harinam also, at Balboa Park. So that was nice. So he was a worshipper of Lord Shiva. And in the purport, it mentioned that your shadow is seen in irreligion. And we can understand that many followers of Lord Shiva, they were actually demons. One of the famous worshippers was Ravana. So now people, they worship Lord Shiva, thinking that, here's someone I can follow. Sometimes you'll see photos, I'm not sure if it's bona fide, of Lord Shiva smoking ganja. There you go. I haven't said that word in a long time, ganja. I remember when I found out about Lord Shiva, I was doing that as well. And then my cousin, the one that introduced me to Krishna consciousness, she said, why are you still doing that? You should give that up. And I said, Lord Shiva is one of our teachers. He shows by example. I was trying to defeat. And then I said, yeah, and they say that marijuana helps with cancer. That was my biggest argument. And then she said, but do you have cancer? And then I said, no. And then she said, please give that up. And that was when I gave it up. So Lord Shiva is a very mysterious person, and it's very difficult to understand him. Is he God? Is he different from God? So it's very difficult. And even Daksha Prajapati, he didn't understand who Lord Shiva was. In the 4th canto, when Daksha, he was having a fire yagya, Lord Shiva was there. And when King Daksha appeared on the scene, everyone stood up except Lord Brahmā and Lord Shiva. And when he saw Lord Shiva sitting there in meditation, he was very angry. He spoke harshly about Lord Shiva. And then there was some argument, and then Lord Shiva didn't want to participate in this, so he left. And so did his followers. And then Daksha had another party, and Sati, she saw that there were demigods flying with their wives all dressed up. And so she wanted to partake in this party that her father had. And Lord Shiva advised her, we shouldn't go. Because 1, we weren't invited, and 2, your father is hostile towards me, so it may not be a good reason to go. But Sati, she said, no, he's my father, So Lord Shiva allowed her to go. And when Sati appeared at the party, everyone just ignored her. Her father, her sisters, everyone. And then Sati, what she did was she was disgusted by her own father. And this devotee explained that a lot of people may confuse her as committing suicide, but actually Sati, she burned the body because it came from Daksha. So she wanted to get rid of this body, that's this connection with Daksha. And then when Lord Shiva heard of this, he came to the party and he, with I think his hair, he created this demoness. And then this demoness, without being graphic, took care of Daksha. And then Daksha had a new head. So not many people, even devotees of Krishna, they're confused who Lord Shiva is. In the Mahabharata, when the Pandavas were exiled to the forest, Lord Indra, the king of heaven, told Arjuna, "You should prepare for this war. Go and acquire divine weapons from the demigods." So Arjuna did so. And he said, when you try to please Lord Shiva, you should perform austerity, penance. So Arjuna, he was actually a great yogi. He was able to perform these austerities. And Lord Shiva was very pleased. But Lord Shiva wanted to test Arjuna first. So Arjuna was in meditation, and he broke his meditation because he heard a very loud sound. And the sound was a big, large boar. So Arjuna shot this boar with an arrow. And Lord Shiva appeared as an hunter, and he also shot an arrow. And the two arrows hit this boar at the same time. So there was an argument between, whose arrow landed or hit this boar first. And so to test Arjuna, Lord Shiva was seeing how wonderful his powers were. They were shooting missiles, arrows, so many things. And when Arjuna realized he couldn't overpower this personality, he understood this must be Lord Shiva. So Arjuna created this lingam and he began worshiping it. And then Lord Shiva revealed himself. And so Lord Shiva, being pleased, he gave him his, how do you pronounce it? Pashupati weapon. So Lord Shiva, he falls in the category of his own tattva. He's not an ordinary jiva or a soul, and he's also not Viṣṇu tattva. He's in his own element. Okay. So Lord Shiva, he is described here as being the three eyes that he has are compared to the three modes of nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. Lord Shiva's third eye, it's vertical in the middle of, between his eyes. And it's described that when that eye opens, it burns to ashes whoever it glances upon. Yeah. So Lord Shiva, actually Lord Shiva is a wonderful devotee. I'm sure you guys know this. Parvati, Srila Prabhupada explains that although Durga, she's a very powerful demigod, she's this material world, she's in charge of it, she is ignorant when it comes to spiritual matters. So she went before Lord Shiva and she asked, out of all types of worship, what is the best? And Lord Shiva replied, Lord Viṣṇu is the topmost. And then he said, higher than that is the worship of his devotees or any relation with Lord Viṣṇu. So Lord Shiva is a Vaishnava, is a devotee of Krishna. Okay. So I'll end with some sweet Sankirtan stories. Yesterday we were at Miracosta College, and it's in Encinitas. It took about 45 minutes to drive up there. It's a small school, but the students were very sweet. That was my first time there, and I think Dujamani Prabhu said he's only been there a few times. Miracosta College, yeah. And so I stopped this one teacher and I asked her, what do you teach her? And she said, how do you know I was a teacher? And I said, you look very intelligent, the way you present yourself. And she said, I teach English, and I forgot the other subject. And I asked her, what's more important in life, wealth or peace of mind? And she smiled and she said, peace of mind. And so I gave her a stack of books, and I said, these books have your name on it. So she smiled again. And then she said, what are you guys doing here? And I said, we're actually monks from the temple in Pacific Beach. We're going to different schools trying to reach out to students, teachers, anyone who's interested. So I was sharing some verses from the Bhagavad-gītā, and then she appreciated it. She gave a really nice donation. Dvijamani Prabhu, he was, yeah. Dvijamani, he knew how much people's donations were. I was surprised, you know. So anyway, she gave a donation, and at the end she said, thank you for being here. This was unexpected, but I'm glad that you stopped me. You know, the colleges, they're very sweet, because you can see in their faces students are just stressed out, you know. The pressures that they get from their parents, pressure from society, pressure from their own friends. And when they meet devotees, they forget all about that, you know. There was one student, she said, you know I don't usually go this way, but for some reason, something or someone told me to stop here. You know, and I just smiled. And I said, you know, you look like a good reader. She said, I like to read. So I asked her to read the verse in the Bhagavad-gītā about, from anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. And then she said, this is exactly what I'm feeling right now. She said, I've been angry at a certain person, and it's clouding my judgment. So I said, you take this book, and you keep it with you. She said, how much would you like for this book? And I said, you know, we just humbly asked for a donation. So she gave a donation. And as she was walking away, she waved at me, and she said, you know, it's strange. I don't go here, but I found something very nice, you know. At Balboa Park, there was this family from Italy, and they were actually very nice. To me, they seemed very pious. And the mother walked by my table and she said, oh, Bhagavad-gītā, like that. So I was speaking to other people. So after the two ladies got books, I spoke to this family and asked her, are you local or visiting? They said, oh, we're from Italy. I said, oh, I heard all the people from Italy are nice, you know. They smiled. You know, you have to compliment people because maybe they're just having a bad day, you know. So I asked her, do you guys like to read? Are you big or small readers? And then the mother said, I love to read. And then the two little girls, they said, we like to read also. So I was showing them each of the books. And then she said, I don't have that much room, but I want to take this Bhagavad-gītā. So she took the Bhagavad-gītā. And then her kids, they were saying, are these books easy to read for kids? And they were looking at Vaisheshika Prabhu's The Four Questions, A Pathway to Inner Peace. I said, this is specifically for you, and I handed it to the girl. And then I asked her to read the page where it said, to all seekers of truth, now is the time to inquire. And then she smiled and she said, Mom, I want to get this book. Maybe like 12, and then the other one is like 10. And then she reads very well, actually. She speaks English very fluently. And then she said, you know, I have a quick question. When I'm stressed out due to work and, you know, what can I do? What type of meditation? And I had one japa bead left, given by His Grace Kanai Balai Das Prabhu Ji. So I told her, you know, you should try mantra meditation. And I was showing her, and I told her, all of your senses, including the mind, is engaged in this practice. If you practice silent meditation, you'll fall asleep. And she started laughing. She said, yeah, that happens a lot. So I said, don't do silent meditation. It's not the process. So she took beads and she gave a very generous donation. And, sometimes these interactions are so special. They asked to take a picture with me. And I said, one condition, I want to take a picture of you guys first. And then she said, please. So they were holding the books. And anyway, she said, can you please write something in the Bhagavad-gītā? In my own little whatever. So I wrote something like, Hare Krishna, thank you for speaking to me. Thank you for your time. And then I said, if you ever need guidance in life, please read this Bhagavad-gītā. Keep it with you and try to understand the deeper meanings of the Bhagavad-gītā. And then I put, chant Hare Krishna like that, Govardhana Dasa. So she was holding the book in her to her chest. And then she said, if you ever come to Italy, please let us know. Is there some way I can follow you? Do you have an Instagram or Facebook? And I said, I don't. So I gave her a card for the Krishna Lounge. It has some of those platforms there. And then she said, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have met you. And then she said, I'm looking forward to reading the Bhagavad-gītā. And I said, I'm looking forward to hearing from you again. So they went on their way. And then there was this one Mataji. Her name was Blanca, and she was from Spain. And as I was talking to her, she said, today in Spain is called Book Day. And I said, what do you do on Book Day? She said, you get a book and you give it to a friend. So she took like 4 books, and she said, I have 3 friends I want to give this to. But this one, I want to read for myself. And she took The Science of Self-Realization. And she said, how did you know I like books? And I said, you have something very special about you, this aura about you. And I told her to read the section in the Bhagavad-gītā. It says, from the mode of goodness, real knowledge develops. From the mode of passion, greed develops. And from the mode of ignorance, develop foolishness, madness, and illusion. And I said, you are in the mode of goodness just by coming to my table. And she just couldn't stop smiling. And then she said, if you're ever in Spain, please let me know. And I said, actually, we have a few temples in Spain. So I showed her the back of the book where she can find the centers. And I said, if you go to the temple, ask if they have events, if they do some guided meditation, some discussions, or prasadam. So that was that. And then I met some people from Germany. And I asked the first person, I said, you look like an engineer. He said, I am an engineer. How did you know? So I smiled and said, here, I have this book for you. So long story short, I asked him, have you ever thought about, what is the purpose of life? And he said, that's the first thing I ask in the morning. And I said, please read this book. It'll help you find the answer to these questions. The Journey of Self-Discovery. Yeah. And I said, not only that question, but 2 other questions. Who am I, and why is there suffering? And I told him, no one looks for pain and misery, but why does suffering come? And he said, I always thought about that. And then I said, have you heard of the concept of karma? And he said, yeah. And I said, that's one of the reasons. It's due to karma. And then we started talking a little bit more about, his life, his travels. And then he took the book, and then he called his friend over. He said, hey, I want you to meet my friend. He called over his friend. I said, you look like a doctor. He said, you're close. He said, he deals with behavioral therapy. So I said, here, you take this book, Bhagavad-gītā. And I was explaining to him the 3 modes of nature, how one is controlled by these 3 modes. And then he said, this is very interesting. I've heard of the Bhagavad-gītā. And I said, now you can read it. Instead of just hearing about it, you can actually read it. So they gave a donation and they went on their way. So Dujamani Prabhu and myself, before going on the campus yesterday, we were just discussing the glories of the devotees, glories of devotional service, devotees of Sankirtan book distribution, prasadam distribution. So I just want to thank all the devotees for what they do, very sincere. Okay, that's my class. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Rabbi.
Would it be worthwhile to get printed up a little bookmark maybe with an indication of how one could get online and get onto the class? Tell them, oh, we have classes in Bhagavad-gītā every 3 nights a week, like that.
Actually, we do have bookmarks. I saw it in Dvijamani's car. Do you know who printed that out, Bhavan Prabhu? Bhagavad-gītā and the Sunday feast. We used to have them. Yeah, and then the other side. Yeah. Viṣṇu. Okay. Yeah. Because I think bookmarks are a nice addition to the books.
Because then they may get they can get to class.
Yeah.
Then they may show up.
I've been seeing that a lot of new people are coming to your classes.
Yeah, Tuesday's a big day.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there any other questions or? Aviro?
So, Hare Krishna, thank you so much for a very nice class, Prabhu. And my question is technical, maybe Dagudha Prabhu can answer. So in the translation, the king of heaven is called as Mahendra, but it's usually it should be Indra. So the name of Indra is Mahendra.
Well, that's just saying, great Indra. It's like I say Avro,
Maha. But my confusion comes because Mahendra is also the name of Lord Shiva, Mahendra. So I was just confused about these things.
Sometimes Śiva and Krishna, they have similar names.
No, but it's like Indra, right? Like saying Indra is Mahendra. So.
Yeah, I mean, Indra is also a word that means controller, like that. I think it's actually, it has a meaning. So you can call, if Shiva is called Mahendra, it means he's describing him as a big controller, like that. But normally, Mahendra, that's in my experience, is just another way of saying Indra with some praise involved. You're not just Indra, you're Maha Indra, Mahendra.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, like Bhagavan is Krishna, it's something like Bhagavan, Narada.
Yeah.
Anything else? Chad?
Hare Krishna. A few things. I guess start out with the light one. When are you taking your trip to Europe? That you met all these people on your what? Anyway, my question though is, so some of Shiva's followers are ghosts and rakshas. Do you have a description of the rakshas?
I think I remember there's a section in the Bhagavatam that describes all of that. I can't think of it from the top of my head.
Okay. And then the other question is there anywhere in the Shastras that talks about Lord Shiva following the 4 regulative principles?
Well, Garuda is a Vaishnav, but he doesn't follow meat eating, fish or eggs. But of course he's the carrier of Lord Viṣṇu. But yeah, I think we have to explore that. Why?
If he's one of the greatest devotees of Lord Viṣṇu, Krishna, you would think that he would follow the 4 regulative principles. No, I mean all 4. No meat eating, no intoxication, illicit sex, and gambling.
I mean, I'm not sure, because generally, because if you want to talk like specific, like Shiva or this person or that person or this person or that person, like fall in the four regs, I mean, maybe you could see from their activities, you know, that you could see from their activities that they follow, but it doesn't seem that there's like a, you know, like they made some vow or something. There's some like indication in scripture that they, you know.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Is there anything that says that they're not following the vows then, like by the leelas or the actions?
You have Garuda, you know, the carrier of Lord Viṣṇu, like Govardhana was saying, he has fish, you know, because of his particular body. We have Garuda here. That's one. You have Shiva, who smokes ganja apparently once at the time of devastation. That's what it said. It's not like commonly he's doing it.
The Pandavas gambling.
Yeah, Pandavas gambling. So you have things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they knew that, so they took advantage of Yudhishthira. Yes, Avira?
So, like, maybe we should not, we are jivas and he's Shiva, so like the rules which applies to us. Maybe like he's drinking poison, like we cannot drink poison.
That's what Srila Prabhupada says. I think in the part in the Bhagavad-gītā where Krishna says, you know, I'm Rudra. And then the purport, Srila Prabhupada says, many people imitate Lord Shiva smoking ganja, but they also have to drink poison, you know, and survive. Like, yeah. Ocean of poison, yeah. Yes, Balaram Prabhu.
Yeah, you're mentioning. Anyways, you're telling your stories, and you reminded me of a few recent examples. Like there was this girl there last night at the lounge, and she's originally from San Diego. She lives in Santa Cruz now, but she was traveling throughout India recently, in Europe, and she met devotees there in India. And Rishikesh specifically. And she was, because Indra Swami, he put on this festival recently there at Rishikesh. He got all these, you know, because a lot of people from America and Europe, they go to this particular spot in Rishikesh. So he put on like a week kirtan festival. So she met the devotees there. She started chanting, and she actually lived with them there for some time, you know, like a few days. Yeah, it's a great introduction. And then she showed up at the lounge last night. So, and then also recently, this one devotee from Istanbul, Turkey, he sent me a picture of himself with this girl at their center, at the Hare Krishna center there, and he said, "Oh, this girl said that she came to the San Diego temple and to the lounge." And I said, "Yes, that's true. I remember her because I remember meeting her and knowing she was from Turkey." And he said, "Yeah, you should go to the center." And she went and took a picture. And also recently, Audrey, for those of you who know her, she invited us to her class. I was there with Jugala Kishore. Hare Krishna, Jugala Kishore. And anyways, there was one girl, she came and she talked to us afterwards, and she said, "Yeah, I used to go to the temple here in Pacific Beach when I was a teenager." She said, "I grew up here in Pacific Beach, and I used to come when I was a teenager for a few years." And I said, "What year was that?" And she said, "Like 2016. And I was there, I was here at the time. I don't remember her, but anyway, she said that, and then she came to the lounge, not yesterday, but the one before that. Really nice person. So anyways, I'm bringing this up because some of the stories you brought up, and it just illustrates the important point that devotees, as far as possible, need to make themselves available, and people, they come in contact with devotees in numerous different locations, and will help them come to Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
Because you said some stories that reminded me of that, how people, they're associating with somebody and then it kind of works out like that.
Dujamani Prabhu was speaking to one student. This is in Encinitas, it's like 40 plus minutes away. And this person happened to come to Balboa Park, and he told Dujamani Prabhu, can you share this story, Dujamani? I don't want to glorify myself, but the associate, you know.
I mean, I met this person, he's a young student, and he said that he met you 2 years ago at Balboa Park, and you said to him something that is stuck with him. It's a saying about how the saint has a past and the sinner has a future.
Yeah, thank you. 2 years ago, I still remember it.
This saying was from a guy, you know, that every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. This was from a bit of a random fellow in Europe, because I looked it up some time ago. I was wondering where this come from. It's like a random poet in Europe who was he was kind of rejected from the church, and because of his bit of immoral activities, this and that, and anyway, whatever. But I wanted to ask you a question. You have Shiva and Sati and that whole pastime, and she makes this fire, and her whole body goes in flames, and Daksha, because of her father, she's really disgusted with her father, and so on. But then after that, there's this whole intense war between Shiva's followers.
Yeah. They were cursing each other.
And they went and they killed Daksha and everything. And this was stemming from Shiva, though. It's not that his followers just got upset and they went and created all this problem. It was coming from Shiva. He was the one who, he was also upset and angry about this. So how do we see this in relation to Vaishnav? He's the greatest Vaishnav. So how do we see this in relation to practicality? Because we're said we're supposed to be tolerant, and of course I'm not saying this is a fault of Shiva. I'm just trying to, how do we see this?
I remember hearing Srila Prabhupada said, we should protect the devotees, and I think it's also included that if a person talks bad about a devotee, you can defeat him. If you can't, you should walk away. Or if you have the strength, you should cut out his tongue. So yeah, we protect the devotees, Srila Prabhupada said if you love something, you should protect it. And Srila Prabhupada also mentioned the body. If someone comes to harm us, we don't just let them, be peaceful and, attack us, but we protect Krishna's property, I hope that helped all.
Okay, so you're saying there's room for...
Yeah, of course.
There's room for these things. Okay, all right. But we just have to be careful, because again, it would fall into the imitation of great personalities like Shiva or somebody like that. I mean, of course, these are very rare circumstances rare circumstances and personalities found in the Bhagavatam, right?
Yeah, we should use discrimination according to time, place, and circumstance, I think, I'm forgetting, but there was a pastime where I think Srila Prabhupada saw Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur telling one of his disciples to kill a snake, And Srila Prabhupada said, I thought he was a sadhu, And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur quoted that it's not sinful to kill a snake, I think a scorpion or something like that. And then when Srila Prabhupada found out about this, he was very happy. Yeah. Okay. It's getting late. Thank you for your time and attention. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.